video moves quickly. Expect to pause often to read through the sample passages. What is the human experience? What are the essentials of being human? Humanity involves birth, growth, emotionality, aspiration, conflict, and mortality. It requires that we take a look at ourselves through biological, psychological, sociological, historical, artistic, religious, and philosophical lenses. Let's brainstorm what it means to be human from each of these lenses. Biologically, humans are born, we grow, we change, we age, and we die, with a lot of other biological functions taking place in between. Psychologically, within oneself, we love, we hate, we accept, we reject, and we desire, along with many others. Sociologically, within groups, we interact, we react, we bond, we destroy bonds, we internalize norms, and so on. Historically, we build, we negotiate, we learn, we progress, we regress, the list goes on. Artistically, we create, we express, we beautify, we connect, we inspire, etc. Religiously, we believe, we forgive, we bless, we curse, we repent, among a host of other things. Philosophically, we contemplate, we question, we reflect, we seek, we deconstruct, and many more. The human experience is a cornerstone of literature. In fact, Shakespeare recognizes aspects of the human experience in his monologue from As You Like It. So let's apply our brainstorming on the various lenses of human experience to this passage. Let's pause briefly for a literary terms moment. Before we get started, just a note about this passage. The extended metaphor in here, the world as a stage and humans as players or actors on that stage, is an example of a conceit. This is a literary term that means an extended metaphor or comparison that is exaggerated or unusual. Conceits, because of the unique nature of the comparisons between objects that are quite dissimilar, are often employed to make readers think more deeply or broaden a reader's awareness of the complexity of the ideas in question. Now, back to our brainstorming. The first few lines read, "All the world's a stage, and all the men and women merely players. They have their exits and their entrances, and one man in his time plays many parts, his acts being 7 stages." Here we have a performance metaphor. The biological points of performance are metaphors for birth and death. Man goes through many acts within his lifetime, beginning with birth and ending with death. At first we have the infant mewling and puking in the nurse's arms. The first stage or act is focusing on the biological connection. The infant is exhibiting typical infant behaviors, crying, eating, sleeping, vomiting. The baby is in survival mode. This is known as the id in Freudian psychology. You might have heard that term before. Then we have the whining schoolboy with his satchel and shining morning face, creeping like a snail unwillingly to school. So the second stage is moving beyond the biology of living to the psychological, sociological, and maybe even philosophical factors of humanity. This child doesn't want to go to school. We have a snail creeping simile here to illustrate his unwillingness. So that makes us ask, why do kids not want to go to school? All these many years after Shakespeare wrote about this, we can still relate to this idea. What are the timeless psychological, sociological, and philosophical connections Shakespeare ascribes to mankind here? And then we have the lover sighing like a furnace with a woeful ballad made to his mistress's eyebrow. So this third stage is again focusing on the psychological, sociological, and philosophical factors of humanity, as well as the artistic. We have the adolescent lover with a developing sexual awareness, the intense yet brief fire of fickle love and youth, which we get from the furnace simile. So how does the adolescent crush a stage of man? And what are the universal psychological, sociological, and philosophical human experiences that Shakespeare associates with infatuation? Next, we move on to a soldier full of strange oaths and bearded like the pard, jealous in honor, sudden and quick in quarrel, seeking the bubble reputation even in the cannon's mouth. In this fourth stage, Shakespeare is focusing on the psychological, sociological, historical, and philosophical aspects of human maturation. We have the soldier or man willing and able to prove his manhood to gain great reputation and honor without the work. He's willing to take enormous risks to gain fame and fortune. So how is Shakespeare's use of conceit in referencing the man as a soldier key to understanding the nuances of the passage? Think about that. What are the connections you can make between a man in this stage of life and a soldier? What are the human experiences Shakespeare associates with proving one's manhood or womanhood? Then we move on to the justice, in fair round belly with good capon lined, with eyes severe and beard of formal cut, full of wise saws and modern instances, and so he plays his part. So in this fifth stage, we're focusing on the psychological, sociological, historical, artistic, religious, and philosophical aspects of what it means to be middle-aged. And biological too, with a round belly. We have the justice, or a judge, who is wise and experienced. He can navigate various situations, possibly through corruption if required. We can see from his eyes severe and beard of formal cut that he's established a presence and level of sophistication beyond the soldier's need to physically prove his worth. Consider here, too, how is Shakespeare's use of conceit in referencing the man as a justice key to understanding the nuances of the passage? Think about that. What connections can you make between this middle-aged stage of life and a judge? He's got a round belly with good capon lined. Capon is like an expensive chicken, bred specially for food, so maybe he enjoys the finer things, or he's gotten comfortable. So what are the human experiences Shakespeare associates with the middle-aged man or woman? Now we come to the sixth stage, which shifts into the lean and slippered pantaloon, with spectacles on nose and pouch on side. His youthful hose, well saved, a world too wide for his shrunk shank, and his big manly voice turning again toward childish treble, pipes and whistles in his sound. So the sixth stage is focusing on the biological, psychological, sociological, artistic, religious, and philosophical aspects of what it means to be past one's prime. This is the getting old stage. The pantaloon is a foolish old man, most often depicted in a deteriorated form. His clothes are too big. He doesn't have a well-maintained physique. He's like a toddler. The childlike reference reinforces his dependence on able-bodied younger adults. This is the beginning of the end. Do you think Shakespeare's pantaloon has an awareness of himself and his place in society? Why, and how would you know? And what are the experiences, the human experiences, Shakespeare is associating with elderly men and women? Then we come to the last scene of all that ends this strange and eventful history, and that is second childishness and mere oblivion. Sans teeth, sans eyes, sans taste, sans everything. Sans here means without. So without teeth, without eyes, without taste, without everything. In this last stage, we're back to the strict focus on the biological needs for survival. This age shows the complete regression of man back to an infant, with Freud's id-like qualities. This is the stage of complete oblivion. Sadly, man forgets everything here. Think about Shakespeare's use of the adjective mere before oblivion in line 27. Consider how mere was used in Shakespeare's time in contrast to today. In Shakespeare's time, mere meant total or complete. It was a word that emphasized. Now we use it to mean only, so it's a trivializing word in modern English. So he's saying total oblivion. So what human experiences is Shakespeare emphasizing with this repetition of sans, or without? As you're reading your novel and other works, look for, consider, and analyze the connections to universal human experiences as you find them. They are plentiful in good literature. They're what resonate with us and make good stories timeless.